Okay, intro to part 39 of the Haul Truck series. I know that a lot of my longtime viewers have heard me address this issue before, but I've got a lot of new subscribers, so let me just throw this in there. This video is probably going to jump all over the place, and there's a bunch of reasons for it. There's kind of a method to my madness. I'm going to start out by talking about the cab and switches and stuff. Pretty quick, I am going to have to start doing some wiring on this truck. And there's a bunch of things that I'm going to need. I kind of wanted to get into the cab, tear some things apart, kind of figure out where things are going to go, because I have to buy wires, switches, gauges, etc., fuse boxes, things like that. As I go along, I'm also doing other things too. You're going to see me switch to the front door because I kind of wanted to keep the door in my mind. And when I say front door, it's a driver's side door. There is no really front door. There's a bunch of things that I want to keep in my mind about the door, the trim, the electronics for the mirrors, etc. So I wanted to pull one of the doors out and just kind of take a look at it again. And you'll see that in the video. I'll explain what I'm doing and what I'm looking for on the door. Over the back of my shoulder, you're going to see the front axle. That is the new front axle, and it's on the truck, and you're going to see this in that video. So when you see me jumping around, there's probably a reason for it. One of the things that I want to address kind of that's going through my mind is those are 22.5 tires and rims on that front axle. The same way with that new rear axle, that had 22.5 tires and rims on it. One of the things that I'm kind of thinking about doing, and keeping with the thought, these 22.5 tires were not that much bigger than the 1120s that were on the original axle. So one of the things that I'm kind of thinking about doing is switching the rear tires to 24.5s instead of 22.5s. Give me a little bigger diameter on the tire. Give me a little bit better ability for cruising speeds. So there's a lot of things that are always going through my mind. So you might see me jumping around, but again, there is a method to my madness. Now, I'm showing you this axle. That's the old axle. The new axle I had just shown you. So let's jump into it. During the course of any given day, I could be working on anything. What I was doing, I started out this morning editing a video, and then turned my attention towards spot putting or glazing the carbon fiber intake mold a little bit. While I'm waiting for that to dry, I started thinking about this. As you know, I had come up with this kind of design concept for switches or gauges that was going to go down here. Well, I started thinking about the reason why I was going to go down there is because the heater's back here. Now this is a blank space where the radio probably originally was supposed to go. Got an ashtray over here that probably not going to ever use. A glove box that I might never use. So the only thing that would hinder me from bringing it up farther is the heater controls, the fan, the heat, the defrost lever type thing. But I started thinking, I wonder if I took, if there's enough cable to bring that thing down or out, and I could actually incorporate it into something up here, maybe getting the stuff up here a little farther. So what I'm going to do is take out that switch and control plate that was for the emergency switches. It's got a fuel gauge in it now, and take out that switch control plate and see if I can what is holding that heater control module onto the dash. I'm going to say basically this panel here can go away. I just got to kind of figure out how they ran the wires so that I can terminate them properly, and it looks like it's all ran in this one wiring harness over here. That's a little strange. They have this light bulb here that's right up against the back of the plate. And there's, you see where they have little glow lights here, red lights that would trigger here. There is nothing here where this light is. Unless that light was there. Yeah, unless that light was there to illuminate this gauge, fuel gauge, which happens to be a Stewart Warner gauge, which I'm kind of thinking about using for the gauges in the truck. When I take this thing off, I'm actually going to fire that light up and see if that light will shine in through the side of that to illuminate that gauge, if that's how they illuminated that gauge. Let me bring it back. Tell you what I'm going to do. Just going to cut these wires off. I'll be able to tell where they go because I'm going to leave the wires anyways, that's it for that. I have the driver's side door pulled out, and out here kind of in the middle of the shop, I'm looking at a couple of things on this door that is going to, first of all, if you put the window down, that's where the bottom of the crank comes. Bottom of the window, the crank arm. What I would have liked to have done is stuck a pocket in there. Now, I'm not sure that I'm still not going to stick a pocket in there, or I might mount something out from this to like hold papers, gloves, you know, stuff like that. The kind of the pockets that are in newer style doors. That's kind of what I'm thinking about. I would have liked to recessed it in, but realistically, the bottom of that window and that crank handle is down there. It really doesn't give you much of a spot to recess it in. Now, I mean, I could make it stick a pocket out and recess it down in, a pocket down in. So that's kind of one of the things that I'm looking at. The other thing that I was looking at is, well, there's a couple of other things that I'm looking at. The mirrors are going to be heated. They're not going to be. I'm not going to buy powered mirrors so that I can move them remotely, but I am going to buy them heated. And one of the things that I was looking at is where to run the wiring out through the door. So there's going to be kind of a flexible cable in here coming out through the door and then going back in through the body work of the cab, so that I can work the wires into the dashboard. But I was kind of looking at that location, kind of figuring out where that would go. The other thing that I'm looking at is I'm going to be insulating and sound deadening the skin of that door. And that's one of the things that I've got to be looking at also, is cleaning this up. As you can see, it's kind of, I'm not really sure if you can see it, but it is dusty and dirty inside. Structurally, it's sound. There's no rust in there. There doesn't even look like there's any rust at the bottom of the door. I'm not really sure if you can see that down there. No, you can't. But there is no rust at the bottom of the door. So all I got to do is probably clean it up. I'm probably going to put some kind of a coating on the bottom. It's probably going to be that PRO 15. I'll put on the bottom of it. I'm not sure if I'm going to put it up on the sides because, again, there is no sign of surface rust. It's just dirt. I might just clean that up. And then what I'm going to be doing is probably putting some kind of a foam on the inside of the panel, contact cement, that spray contact cement in foam panels attached to the outside skin to provide insulation and sound deadening inside of the cab. So that's one of the reasons I got the door out here. The other reason is I just wanted to double check these mirrors. So as you can see, the way the mirror is sitting right now, actually, let me turn this door around. Hang on, let me bring it right back. Let's look at these mirrors. These mirrors are almost pristine. I mean, I'm not sure what they are. It looks like polished stainless steel to me. Back of the mirror itself looks like it's chrome plated, but that's going to go away because it's going to be replaced with a heated mirror. If anybody's interested, I'm going to take these off, replace these things with heated mirrors. They are original Ford, even though it's upside down. It is upside down. Somebody put that mirror on upside down. But anyways, I'm going to be replacing it, but it is an original Ford mirror. But the one thing that I'm looking at, I can clean all of this stuff up, but what it came from is it came from those nuts. All of these nuts apparently aren't stainless steel or were never chrome plated, so I'm probably going to end up replacing these things. All of this, the nuts, the hardware on this thing. But the other thing that I was looking at is this arm, this U-shaped arm that actually holds the mirror can be pivoted out, and it will have to be pivoted out. It was set up for a truck that didn't have a wide body behind it. In other words, the tanker on the fire truck wasn't that wide. It wasn't much wider than the cab itself, but my sleeper sticks out about 8 inches, and 8 inches is probably right there in the plane of the mirror. So what I'm going to have to do is pivot these arms out so they're out straighter and the mirror's out farther. There will be a round mirror put on it also. There might actually be 2 round mirrors put on it. One for a wide angle, and I might get a flat round mirror is kind of like a spot mirror. Sometimes it's really nice to have a little spot mirror kind of focused on the end of your trailer when you're backing up, trying to avoid bollards or trying to get that trailer into a certain spot when you're backing up, like a driveway entrance or a dock entrance. It's really nice to have that. So wide angle round mirror on the bottom, which will be heated. The main mirror will be heated. And then I might put a little spot, flat round spot mirror up here that is going to be positioned and pointed directly at the tail of the trailer. But again, that body, the bodywork, the doors, everything are in just pristine condition. Okay. It's down. I just got to roll it out of there. Okay guys, that front axle is out. Probably what I'm going to do is grab the forklift truck and pick it up. Okay, there's a haul truck with that front axle out of it. I videotaped removing it, and that you saw that prior to this. What I did is hook the forklift truck up to it and brought it over here and just sat it here temporarily. Put a chain on it and hooked it up and set it there temporarily. Not sure what I'm going to do with that thing yet. If there's any value in it, if anybody's looking for a front axle off of a 1974 Ford F750, just give me a shout and let me know. One of the things that I've got to do is these sat on top of the spring like that, and the U-bolts went into it, holding apart. First of all, for the new U-bolts, the spacing will be wider apart and the U-bolts are bigger, so this thing isn't going to work. What I'll do is I'll try and make something up that will fit it. It isn't going to hinder me getting the axle probably in place, but I need to get going on that. But anyways, here's a haul truck, no front axle. So there's always got to be an issue that will arise. From this is a bolt, let's call it a bolt, that holds the leaves together. This is the bottom leaf on the spring, and what it is a shackle for the shock absorber. Goes up in between here and here. The shock goes up that way. So from the center line of this bolt to the back side of this shackle housing is 3 1/4 inches. If you come over here to the axle, the center line of that to the edge of the cast iron housing is 3 1/8. So that shackle bracket is into the housing of the axle. So what I've got to do is come up with a way, do something here. I'm not really sure I want to lose this shock absorber. It would be very easy to pull this apart and just take this bottom leaf off. It's a very small leaf. The other thing that I could probably do is pull the leaf off and move the hole back into it, back in farther, so that it creates a bigger gap in there that would allow me to get the shock absorber. It would just put the shock a little bit further forward, and not at such an angle that or at the angle that it was originally. But let me think about that for a minute. What I came over here to do is lay out that bracket that I told you, that top bracket where the U-bolts kind of rested into it. I've got to redo that bracket, so I was going to lay out for that bracket and then kind of started thinking, geez, I wonder if that shackle housing for the shock absorber is into that, if it will clear that, and no, it does not clear. Okay, so what I did is just took the other axle and rolled it over here kind of in position. Now it very well might not be centered up, but I just kind of wanted to hold it in position to see, kind of get a better reference as to what I can do or not do with it. As far as that shock absorber pivot on the bottom goes. It gives me some perspective as to what the axle is going to look like underneath the truck. So there it is. You know, one of the things is just kind of a sidebar. One of the things that I still got to do is determine what that axle came off of. I know it came off of a Freightliner, but what model? You know, if I was ever looking for I'm not even sure what it has, if it has ball joints. Looks kind of like a kingpin type of arrangement. But if I was ever looking for any of this stuff, I need to know what it was off of, so I don't have that same issue as I had before, going to a parts store and saying, yeah, and telling them that I'm looking for brakes, ball joints, something, and having them say, oh, year, make, and model. Can't help you unless you got year, make, and model. I'll bring you back. I'm not sure if this is going to get blown out by the light, but you reading this isn't what I'm doing or what this is about. Sometimes what I do is write things down. That was kind of an old habit from work. And when I say write things down that are kind of a sticking point for me, or an issue or something. And jobs, big jobs, I used to keep a log of what was going on, who was working where, on what, and things, just in case something came up about, an issue came up about it. But what it helped to do is keep things in my mind, so that, you know, the fact of writing it down kind of cements it into your mind, so that you know what's going on. Let's not address the shock issue right now. I think I know what I'm going to do about that, but I don't want to verbalize it right now. Let's address this issue. This was that bracket that held the U-bolts on the existing axle. So logically, the U-bolts, the new U-bolts on the new axle, are wider apart and bigger in diameter. This was probably a 1/2 inch U-bolt, whereas the new U-bolt is 3/4. So it wouldn't fit in here two ways, because the U-bolt won't fit into that little groove that's provided for the bolt, and the spread is too wide. So what I've got to do is come up with something to replace this with. Now, logically, I'm not going to bend something like that. I don't even think this was bent. This almost appears to, well, no, it's probably steel. The sandblasting almost made it look like it was cast iron and maybe cast that way, but I'm going to say it's steel and it was bent. What I'm probably going to do is come up with something like this, and again, hopefully you can be able to see this. What I'll do is put a plate across and have two, it'll be a straight plate, but be offset up by the use of two pieces of round stock. And the round stock is there to provide a curved contact point for the curvature of the spring, the leaf spring. And what I'll do is for the bolts, I'll just weld two pieces of like square stock or something across it, just so that it holds the U-bolt in place on top of it. Now, dimensionally, it's probably not right, and then what I'm going to have to do is probably provide something up off of the top of it. What that does is creates the thing from missing, because this thing is curved. It creates it from missing the top of that nut that holds the leaves together on the spring. There's a nut in the center of this thing that kind of is with a rod that goes down through, that kind of holds the leaves of the spring in place. So that will clear it, that plate will clear it, and then I will use this upper part to create a pad for the airbag that goes on there. So that's what I'm going to be doing on that. Again, dimensionally, it's probably going to change. More than likely, what I had talked about doing for that shock shackle, say that a lot, or a bunch of times fast. What I'm probably going to be doing for that shock shackle is... Hey, Nick. So, okay, when this video ended, somebody had walked in, and I couldn't film anymore. They brought their car in, working on their car. Ended up having to give them a hand and did some other things. They were here all day long, so nothing else got filmed. So it's actually the next day, and I was going to continue to tell you about the shock mount. What I'm going to do is, you can see where that bolt is that I described in when I was showing you the diagram on the paper. That's a bolt that goes down through and holds the leaf springs together, and it's centered in place. What I'm going to do is that thing, this lower one that holds the shock bracket or lower shackle for the shock absorber, extends back to right here where my finger is. So what I'm going to do is just pull it apart. I'm going to take it off, and I'm going to re-drill a hole farther back so that it extends the shock bracket forward and will miss the flat frame part of the truck where the springs sit. Now, I've got the U-bolt over here, and I, as I said to you before, he was here all day, so I didn't get to film it. So what I did is, I had talked about this in the video, or in the prior video. I actually ended up making one of these things. Now, I didn't film making one of them because, again, he was here. So there is that bracket or plate that I talked about, that I drew a little sketch of in the book. So what I'm going to do is, I've got to make the other one for the other side, and I will film making that in the other side, how I came up with it, how I made it, and we'll actually put it in a shop update. You don't want to see me fabricating that in the haul truck videos. So there's that, and there is what I'm going to do with the shock bracket to get it moved forward. so that it doesn't interfere with the axle frame. But anyways, I'll bring you back. After I turned the camera off, I thought of one other thing that I wanted to explain to you. This surface here will become the landing zone for the airbag. So the airbag will go in here between the frame rail, and I'll make a bracket up. Logically, they don't sell anything prefabricated for this application. So what I'll do is I'll make a bracket up to get the airbag in here. So this will be the landing zone on the bottom. Where this bump guard originally was on the frame will be coming off, and a bracket, some kind of a bracketry will be made up here to adapt the upper part of the airbag system to. Okay, front leaf spring. I'm gonna deal with that shock mount on the bottom. So what I did was just took seat clamps, clamped that spring together, and then took the holding bolt, the bolt that goes up through the centering bolt that goes up through, took it off. I'm gonna clean that up, get some oil in there too, just so that it doesn't rust up bad. I mean, the thing is 35, almost 40 years old, and it looks great actually. But what I'm going to do is just take this and move that hole back like probably 1.5 inches. But I'll bring you back for that. Okay, so I'm over here to the haul truck. What I did is fix those shock things. I kind of mentioned it before. All I did is took this lower leaf off, which holds the shackle for the shock, and drilled the hole 1.5 inches back farther, so it pushed the shock shackle forward 1.5 inches, which will give me enough room in front of that axle housing to get the shock onto it. Here's what the problem is. I fucked up. I don't know how I did this, but when I made this plate that goes in to align the U-bolts on the top, instead of measuring the distance between it this way, I measured the distance the other way, and the plate doesn't really fit. So this plate is trashed. Well, I might be able to salvage part of it. There is a possibility I could be able to salvage it by cutting it off and using this as a backside and welding a new tab on the front side. But I've got to kind of really get into it before that. So what I got to do is go in, make a new plate for this one, make the other plate for the other side. I haven't even made that one yet. So, but yeah, I guess we all fuck up once in a while. Okay, let me just show you that the new axle is up and in position. Now I kind of had a little bit of an issue, or a little bit of trouble. Let's not call it an issue, let's just call it trouble, getting the thing in. I mean, I tried to jack it up with a floor jack, and it wanted to roll, and it wouldn't have mattered if it rolled, except that there's that pin that goes down through the shocks, and then in the top of the axle there's a hole that receives that pin. It serves two purposes. It's a receiving area for that protrusion, but it aligns the axle also. And it was kind of hard to get it lined up when it kept wanting to roll back. It's kind of heavier on the back side, so it always wants to roll back. But I got it on there. What I did is I just took a bottle jack, and once I got it up there, kind of repositioned it by shifting it around with my body weight, and then keeping it in position using the bottle jack that prevented it from rolling. So a couple of the things I discussed in a shop update about having to modify the or how I modified the bracket that I had made for it because I had screwed up and made it too big. Well, the other thing is that I have to do, and I'll take you over and show it to you, the shortest U-bolts that I could get are actually too long for this application. So I have to rethread them down a little bit. I'll rethread them down and then cut them off so that they don't stick down through as far. But anyways, I just kind of wanted to show you that the axle is up there in position, and now it's just a matter of me doing modifications to make all the components fit. This is one of those U-bolts. I've got it probably threaded, I don't know what that is, probably about an inch and a quarter, inch and a quarter. Just thread it down farther. So what I'll do is I'll thread it down farther, cut these off with a port band, and just bevel them out so that it's easier to start the nuts on them. But that shouldn't take too long, and I'll show that process in a shop update. Okay, so the bracket and the U-bolts are on this side. Now I just kind of tightened them a little bit with the half-inch impact. I didn't really tighten them all that well because it's probably I've got to probably loosen it to adjust it over there. On the other side, I'm not really sure whether I am going to take it apart to paint all of that or just paint it afterwards while it's on. But anyways, it's on. I've got to work on the other side. I've got to make that bracket and that upper bracket, cut the U-bolts, etc. I'll bring you back. Okay, there's the driver's side. It's on, so I've got both sides on now. I just torqued them down with that cordless impact. I didn't really reef on them with that cordless impact. I just torqued them down. What I'm going to do, jack it up, get it off of the stands, and set it back down. I'll probably straighten these wheels out a little bit before I do it, but I'll bring you back when I get it back down. Okay, so here is the truck back off of the jack stands and down on the new axle. Now what I've got to do is, and I'm not sure if it's going to be the first thing that I do, I'm going to have to center line that steering box arm down there so that I know that it's centered, and try and straighten these wheels as much as possible with the frame. I'll probably run a string down through here, measuring off of the frame to make sure that the wheels are parallel with the running parallel with the frame rails of the truck. And then what I'll do is I'll pull that old arm off and see what I'm going to need for a new arm. It probably won't be a new arm. It'll probably be well, the first thing I got to pull off is, I got to tell you, I don't think that these ball joints will go into that existing steering arm there. They're way smaller than that one, and that one at the end of that is way larger probably than that, but I'll have to show it to you when I get it off. But anyways, not the point of this clip. Point of this clip is that it's off the jack stands and supported on those leaf springs.